Don't you worry. It's only a story.
Good evening, Mr. Burke. How are you feeling today? Not in a chatty mood? The doctor won't be pleased, Mr. Burke.
You want to know how I'm feeling, Nurse Martin? You want to know how I'm fucking feeling? Feeling like you've locked me up in here with my mind and I've got no way out.
But there is a way out. All you have to do is tell us what happened on Ruff's Tower.
It doesn't matter what I tell you. You already think I'm crazy.
We don't use that word here.
Cuckoo, crazy, batshit insane. It doesn't matter. Any way you spin it, you won't believe me.
Whatever happened was very real to you, and I'm willing to listen to every word. Ryan, do you know why we don't use the word crazy here? It's because it's an invalidating word. You'd expect a crazy person to say that they aren't crazy. So when someone calls them crazy and they deny it, they have no defense. A vast majority of patients here have been through some very real experiences, like you. It's our job to decide how to make them feel better.
I'm not crazy. I can't explain what happened out there, but I'm not sick in the head.
And what happened out there, Ryan?
The last thing I remember before I woke up was that I was on a boat.
What kind of boat?
It was an aircraft carrier. HMS Audacity.
So you were a soldier?
That's right. Lance Corporal with the RAF. My mom always told me I needed to make something of my life, and I wanted nothing more than to show her I was more than the sum of my parts. I used to break easily. My dad always told me I needed to be a man. Oh, fuck. Rather be a girl than a man, if this is what it takes.
So then what happened?
I don't know. I never slept, but I somehow woke up.
How do you mean, Ryan?
I remember walking along the deck, and the next thing I knew was I was on some base out in the open ocean with guns in my face.
You were at Ruff's Tower?
Yes, and there was so much fog, but it was also storming, and I could hear the wind, and I could hear the rain against the water out in the distance.
You said there were guns in your face. Were they from other soldiers?
They were angry. Like they were a swarm of bees, and I was a pebble that disturbed their hive. The funny thing was that I was so confused as to how I even got there. It was as if I blinked and I was suddenly just placed there.
What happened next?
A few of them were yelling to each other. One of them, the commander, started questioning me, but I couldn't understand what he was saying. I was just too discombobulated. He forced me onto my knees, placing my hands behind my head, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs that I didn't know what was going on, but they wouldn't listen. They only stopped cursing and spitting at me when they heard a scream. Behind the commander, a few men had directed their attention to the sky. I barely had time to comprehend what was happening. My brain couldn't understand it, and trust me, by God, I still don't trust my own eyes. They were just staring at the sky, this soldier that had been dragged into the fog above them. At least I'm assuming it was one of their own, because I could only see his legs flailing around him, stirring the air like soapy bathwater.
Could you see what was dragging him?
No. He ascended as if it were Judgment Day.
Ruff's Tower is used as an aerial watch. While they were distracted, there could have been an attack.
Don't patronize me like I'm some fucking idiot. I know the sound of a plane when I hear one. Even with the sound of rain, it can't match the sound of an engine. It's louder than gunfire. But I wouldn't expect a nurse like yourself to understand that. You just deal with the aftermath, isn't that right?
I'm sorry, Ryan. I wasn't trying to question you.
Like I said, I didn't see a damn plane. But I did see a man flying to God knows where. Sure as hell wasn't heaven, though. So after our brains could rack around what just happened, something fell clean out of the sky. Most likely it was the same poor bastard that was sucked up just a minute ago. But I couldn't tell you. Even if I saw his face, I wouldn't be able to identify him after he went splat onto the concrete.
What happened next?
I can't say for sure. The lieutenant took me inside to question me. Not too unlike right now. But I know after an hour or so of questioning, I was led up to the main deck to radio back to the Audacity so I could be returned to duty after my reprimand.
Did this concern you?
What? The possibility of facing punishment for desertion when I didn't even know what happened? Concern me? Definitely not. You have another cigarette?
Of course.
Thanks.
So how long was it until you were picked back up?
With the storm and the fog, they didn't want to risk what they didn't have just for a lance corporal. We were told we'd have to wait until at least morning for the weather to clear up.
I can't imagine how frightening that must have been for you.
I didn't have time to be afraid about that. Not long after the message was transmitted, we heard another scream outside. We ran outside, and they were still cleaning up what was left of the first guy. Except all their attention was on the edge of the platform where a man was struggling to bring another member back to Earth. The man above was half concealed by the fog, but his pelvis wriggled around in desperation. He was continuously jerked up and down as if someone was fighting to get him up, while his comrade fought back to keep him down. One soldier on the ground aimed his gun above his friend, but another prompted them to put it down because it was too risky. In his fight, he accidentally kicked the man holding him off, and he was swept into the air just as the other man before him had been. His scream died pretty much as soon as his shadow faded into nothing.
What did you do?
What else could I do? I waited. I waited to hear him scream. I waited to see him fall. I waited for whatever was going to happen. And I wasn't alone, though, because the base felt deathly silent. We could hear each other breathe in and out through our mouths, paralyzed with fear. I counted backwards from 100, trying to keep myself focused on anything other than the hell we were sitting in. I got to 87 before I heard the impact. It happened no more 10 feet in front of me, yet the sound registered before the sight of the man falling. It sounded like wind against a windshield of a car, except significantly louder and shorter. It was sickening, with the blood leaking out from the torn and ruptured sheets of cloth that used to be his uniform.
What do you think happened?
I don't know. It was storming, but the wind was hardly strong enough to blow salty mist in our faces. That's when we started to make questionable choices. The men and I started bracing ourselves along the wall, tying whatever heavy objects we could to our ankles. We thought if this thing couldn't pick us up, we would be fine. We didn't have time to consider how strong the pull might have been.
It didn't work, I take it.
Not even close. It was quite possibly the worst decision we made that night. He chose another victim, whatever it was. Nobody saw what pulled this soldier. He had chained an entire trunk to his legs. He didn't go up in the air, but instead something pulled him over the side. We heard a scream as he went down, but none of us could reach him as we were weighed down by objects much heavier than we could carry by ourselves. We knew the trunk hit the water first because we heard the splash long before a scream had ever been submerged.
That must have been so horrible.
You don't know the half of it. We could do nothing but wait. Some went mad, blubbering and babbling to themselves. They aimed their guns at the sky, fully expecting they would be next. This went on for a few hours until one of them aimed a gun at a fellow soldier. He had the fear of God in his eyes, and I knew he wouldn't mix words with him. He was fully prepared to shoot each and every last son of a bitch on that base, including himself. His neighbor, however, wasn't nearly as far along in the madness as he was. We didn't even see him raise the gun, but the sound of the bullet piercing the madman's head echoed around us. When we saw that poor bastard slump over, we knew we weren't just down in numbers. We were down on people we could rely on.
Did anyone else disappear that night?
They carried on, yes, but there was nothing we could do about it. Even when they screamed as they were taken either up or down, we all just turned to stone. It was already proven there was nothing we could do. Some of us prayed, others cried, some shouted and riddled bullets into that godforsaken sky, but what we feared the most was the quiet. We couldn't even hear the rain anymore, nor the water beating against the concrete pillars below us. It was an abnormal silence. The kind of silence you'd hear in a casket, 6 feet under. The air even swallowed the sounds of our breathing into the fog.
How long do you suppose you've been waiting?
I don't know. The sky never changed. The fog never left. The fear destroyed any sense of hunger or thirst we had. Have you ever sat by a man that felt so divorced from himself that he looks like a wax dummy?
On occasions, yes.
That was the first time I've seen it. There were times at night where I'd wondered if any of those men were truly here with me. Maybe they had died some time that I wasn't looking, or perhaps they were all just lonely reflections of myself. Our eyes were swollen red and devoid of all feeling. It wasn't until there was only 10 left did we lift our chins up and truly survey our situation again.
Why do you think that is?
We'd known for hours that any one of us could go, but the idea became real once again. One of the soldiers started whimpering like a child. He actually wound up pissing himself, although his eyes held no shame. He looked on as if someone blinded him. He seemed so unaware and unresponsive to anything in his environment. "Get hold of yourself," someone yelled to him. Though by the tremor in his voice, I knew they weren't far from being pushed over the edge. The one that was practically simpering took out a gun, shoved the barrel into his mouth, and pulled the trigger. My dad used to tell me about the red mist. It's a term used to describe when a man has been blown to shit, and all that's left are the blood particles dancing in the air as if they were solid matter, like dust swept off a bookshelf.
Did you see the red mist, Ryan?
Yes. The blood and bits of brain matter. Some of it floated into the fog, turning the air above him pink. But the fog floated in and around the base, never out, as if the air was concealing this hellish event, forbidding it from escaping and warning everyone else what was going on. Nobody could hear our screams. Nobody could see past the fog, and nobody would be able to reach us past the storm that seemed to touch every other goddamn location in this one tiny block of land in the middle of the sea.
What about the others, Ryan? What happened to them?
Maybe 15 minutes later, a stench hit.
The stench from the dead? The urine?
No. This disgusting odor fell from the water, the sea, the fog, the clouds, every particulate stank. The 9 of us that remained started covering our faces with our hands, uniforms, or whatever else we could use. My eyes were tearing up, and I remember screaming to the sky what the smell was. I screamed over and over again. The men moaned and groaned, some vomiting beside themselves.
Ryan, have you ever heard of cabin fever?
No.
It's a condition brought on by a claustrophobic reaction. It can cause people to lose their minds and to hallucinate. The smell could have been a hallucination. I had a client from Kentucky that thought that he could hear and smell the ghost of his wife.
No. This wasn't brought on by claustrophobia. This thing was trying to smoke us out.
I'm not following.
I don't believe this was some force of nature. This had to be some living, breathing, thinking entity. It had to be something sentient, because it occurred to me that the 9 of us that remained were those that were clinging to the walls the furthest away from the edge. The rest of them were along the sides. I knew that its silence had to have been from being unable to reach us. It was trying to pique our curiosity, or maybe force us to hurl over the side. And you know what? It worked for some. They unchained themselves, despite how the rest of us pleaded for them to hold strong. It was too late, though. They ran to the balcony sobbing and heaving before falling over the edge.
So what happened to the rest of you?
Dizzy. I became so dizzy. It was that smell. Dear God, I hated that smell. I was on an empty stomach. I didn't have water. The salt had dried me out, and my nostrils inhaled nothing but filth. I passed out, and I woke up here. The rest should be history for you. I was told I'm the only survivor.
You were rambling. You were incohesive, frantic, and you certainly gave us a fright.
I suppose apologies are in order. I was so scared.
That's perfectly all right, Ryan, but it's over now. You have to let go of what happened and remember it wasn't your fault.
But what if it was? A lot of people died out there that night, and it didn't start until I got there.
You didn't mean to be there. How could that be your fault?
I guess you're right. I guess I still just feel a little confused about everything. I guess that's to be expected when you wake up twice without any memory of how or why you got to where you are.
Is something the matter, Ryan?
I don't know. It's just kind of weird feeling, you know?
That's to be expected from someone in your state. You should get some rest.
Right. I don't remember telling you my name.
It was on your identification tags.
No, it wasn't. My last name, sure. But my taxes are Burke. I didn't even know I was a soldier.
Ryan, I need you to stay calm.
What? How did you know my name? Where are we? What's going on? Where are we? Where are we? Where are we? Come back and tell me where we are. Where are we?
Containment Unit 901 has been taken up by Ryan Burke. He still can't recall the events that took place nearly 1 year ago. How he killed all his crew members after experiencing cabin fever. He and his crew had been anchored just a mile away from their destination, Ruff's Tower, for about 2 weeks after a mysterious fog rolled in. After 24 hours of silence, the tower sent out a plane to rescue whoever might have been left. They apprehended Burke and awaited further instructions from us. I don't know how Burke could have overpowered so many men, but I do find it a bit strange that all the bodies recovered were tied to equipment 10 times Burke's weight.